Newsfirst Newsline with Faraz Shaukatali.
Top of the morning to you and welcome to Newsline, live from the Newsfirst studios in Dawson Street in Colombo and broadcasting on TV1, that brand new channel from the Capital Maharaja Group. And joining me this morning, there's no bundler this morning, he's gone off to do some errand or other. And instead, we're joined here by our dear friend, Krishmal Wanasuriya, legal expert extraordinaire. I was going to say those other things, but I'll just say a fine lawyer. Good morning, Krishmal.
Good morning, Faraz. Good to be here.
How are you?
Not too bad. Thanks for having us over.
Enjoyed the ride here, Jaco?
You don't live that good.
And we're also delighted to welcome to our program this morning Vidya Abe Gunawardena, the coordinator of the Sri Lanka campaign to ban landmines even. Good morning, Vidya.
Good morning to you.
And how are you?
Good, very good.
Excellent. Thank you very much for being here. Not many people really know about this Ottawa Convention or the Ottawa Treaty. What is it? What is it to do with?
It's all about banning landmine all around the world.
Okay.
So, international campaign to ban landmine started in 1992.
Okay.
There were 6 international INGOs formed this organization in 1992.
Right.
And then in 1997, Anti-Personnel Mine Ban Convention, or known as the Ottawa Convention, came into effect. So basically the convention looking at banning of production, stockpiling, use and transfer of the landmine around the world.
And what good? And Sri Lanka has just signed it, has it?
Yes, day before yesterday was an historical day for this country.
Yes, but Vidya, you say that, but why? What good will happen of Sri Lanka signing this? We don't produce it. The LTT and anyone else who wants to become a LTT organization are unlikely to comply with the niceties of these treaties. They're terrorists. I mean, who's going to pay attention?
This is the question we should understand. The responsible government around the world should not use certain weapons. Terrorists use, whatever the weapons available.
Yeah.
They use human as weapons, like when you're looking at the New York attack, they use, who thought that they're going to use airplanes.
Yeah.
But, when we have a war, like long-term prolonged wars, there are certain weapons should not use at all. Landmines, cluster bombs, chemical weapons. Those are the weapons.
What about claymore mines?
Claymore not comes under the Ottawa Convention.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
That's probably why they used it on the attack on one of the Sirasa installations some years ago. But actually, isn't the best way to solve this issue by banning the manufacture of the landmines?
Not only the manufacturer, the user and the transfer.
Yes, but if you don't manufacture it, nobody will be able to use it.
Yeah, now in the world, very few countries are manufacturing landmines.
Right.
Very few.
Who are the countries that manufacture landmines?
We suspect that China is manufacturing, Singapore some time ago, and then Pakistan, Russia. So those are the few countries now manufacturing. US, they are not manufacturing.
Right.
And they are also not a signatory for the convention still, but they are considering. We are asking the Obama.
Why are they not signing it?
But they say they have an issue with the North-South Korean border.
Yeah.
That's the only, question when it comes to the US administration.
Is it a question, or do you think it's an excuse?
I can say it's sort of a question, but we trust sort of Obama administration compared to the previous, Republican administration.
Wow.
Because, we can see a lot of positive things after Obama came into power. there was
there's
no.
one thing about President Obama. He promised to dismantle Guantanamo Bay in the first 100 days. He's now towards his last 100 days, and he's still struggling, poor chap. Welcome to the real world, isn't it, Krishma?
Absolutely.
Because it just goes to show, however powerful the presidency of the United States is, he can't quite do exactly as he wants.
No, but that's a checks and balances that put into their system. Although they call him the most powerful man on earth, still you see within a machinery of constitutionalism,
Right.
even that superpower is curtailed. And then I think that's a healthy sign for democracy.
Well, it's good. So what happens now? They've signed the treaty, and will it have to be endorsed by Parliament? Is it?
Yeah, no, cabinet already granted permission to go ahead with the accession. So hopefully it will happen very soon.
So that means, in practical terms, it means that the Sri Lankan government will not officially buy landmines.
Yes.
Right.
Yes.
And
So
therefore, we hope that they will not use landmines.
not at all. Not used. No. Sri Lankan government, never produced landmine in this country.
Yes, quite.
LTT, they produce mine, they use mine, and they use it nonsense ways, here and there. But Sri Lankan government imported landmines.
Are you able to tell us, or is it within your information, whether the Sri Lankan army complied with sort of international regulations on these matters, even though we were not a signatory during the war? Did they, for example, have maps of where they placed the landmines?
It's very important. Sri Lankan military, they use landmine as a defensive
Right.
weapon.
Right.
LTT use it as an offensive weapon in the first place. We should know that. And also Sri Lankan military always use maps. And LTT never had maps. They laid mines here and there nonsense way.
They probably did, but they didn't. They destroyed them maybe before they gave it, before they lost.
We never
that's
recovered. I mean that I think few recovered. That's what we heard.
Right.
But last stage of the war, I don't think both parties had time to prepare maps. Basically the last battle in Kilinochchi, Mullaitivu areas. Today somebody captured the land, tomorrow another group captured the land. No time for preparing maps. So
I see. Well, that's interesting. Can I just? Our friend Krishmal is perhaps feeling a bit left out here.
Landmarking of water.
Now, Krishmal, what do you think? What's the state of the news? How goes the country at the moment, in your view? What's your view?
I don't know. For us, news is ripe, isn't it? News is always ripe. I was attracted by the 24 boys, let's say, without mentioning a school, although the rivals,
it's the
friendly
big
rivals.
match, yes.
24 boys from a school arrested for jumping into a. I'm sure you will have done some jumping.
Yes, but that's all part of the tradition of the royal family.
Absolutely. My mind just ran back for us when I saw
what about the lead story? What do you think of that business?
So can I just comment on the Royal Thomian? Part of the Royal Thomian. I mean, it's a Sri Lankan escort.
Yes.
If we had escort, it will be the Royal Thomian.
Yes.
Anyone who's anyone in the city or in the country, indeed from overseas, comes Royal Thomian. And part of the tradition of the Royal Thomian is these boys go and visit the girls' schools to collect some money in their hat, and they use that for various indulgences during the day.
Indeed.
The boys look forward to it, the girls look forward to it. I remember in our days, even the principals of the girls' schools knew that we were coming. Of course, they allowed certain leverages and they made sure the girls are safe. But this arresting them, presenting them at police stations, I think that's going a bit too far. Taking the whole spirit of the Royal. Of course, as a parent, I know that we must be watchful now, but I think we must do it within limits. Let the spirit of the Royal Thomaian be alive while safeguarding the children.
Yes, I want to quickly add one quick thing about the Royal Thomaian, because it is the social event in Sri Lanka.
Absolutely.
And it is the world's largest continuously played game of cricket.
2 world wars couldn't stop it.
Including the fact that 2 world wars couldn't
Which stopped the Eton and Harrow, but not the Royal Thomaian.
Indeed. But one thing I wanted to say is very commercialized. There is a new tent now being put out called the Thoroughbreds. And somebody told me that it's extortionately expensive and that the Royal Thomaian should be perhaps listed on the stock exchange because it will make so much money. There you are. Thank you to Anura for giving me that piece of information about the Thoroughbreds. It's like 8,500 a ticket, and you need to bring in 200,000 sponsorship when you come along.
I am aware of the Thoroughbreds.
Have you paid up? Have you taken?
Let's not get personal, but I have lots of friends who are on the committee of Thoroughbreds, and we do know of Thoroughbreds. But I think it's fetching it a bit too far when you say that all these financial contributions are sort of compulsory. But I know that Thoroughbreds is a happening tent, but so are several other tents, like the tent that the Honourable Prime Minister frequents every year.
The Stallions.
Well, he goes to Mustangs now.
Yes.
With the Coles, the Stallions and the Mustangs.
Yes,
so.
But there's a chap who normally takes the mickey out of him. Lots of people do.
Yeah.
Anyway, what do you think of the lead story in that paper that you
had? I saw that. Quite controversial, I would think. Here is a minister who obviously claims that what the eyewitnesses or the so-called eyewitnesses claim as having been seen, he's challenging them on it. And then we have the other side, which is a government deputy minister, Sujiva, saying that if he's done something wrong, he'll be around. You don't really need to say that for us, because if you've done something wrong in a government subject to the rule of law, with your president or minister, you have to be arrested.
That's right.
You don't need to be a minister to go on air and say it. Anyone should know that. But on the other hand, this would, I think, be an ideal test, not just for the government. Yes, for the government, just to see how their bona fides are, but particularly to the so-called unity government, that now there's a clear fractional difference here. Mr. Ranawaka coming from that allegiance with His Excellency the President that came and made the unity government. Then there is UNP Deputy Minister making the statement. This would definitely, I think, be a clear test on this government to see whether, if there is any evidence, as they say, and if that evidence is tested on a metal in court and tempered in the fire of justice, as we say. If there is such evidence, I think it will be interesting to see whether they will walk the talk and whether they will in fact subject the Honourable Minister.
We mustn't forget that Tilak Marapana, when there was some other controversy earlier in the year or last year,
which we discussed on this program.
Which we discussed, and admirably, he stepped down. There is some talk that he may return, but that's a different matter altogether.
Well, he did step down. I would have, having the respect I have for Mr. Marapan as a senior practitioner, I would have preferred had he stepped down long before those speeches were made in Parliament and the media got hold of it. You see, because that just showed a complexion of it, that he was stepping down and wilting to pressure. Had he immediately thought to himself and done that before the media caught up on him and started chasing him, it would have looked better. But then anyway, better late than never.
Better late than never. Basically, we now have the minister who says that that he wasn't there, and we have two young men who says that he was. So hopefully, the investigatory body, the police, will look at the available CCTV.
And that's admissible in evidence in court. And if, as they say, there is clear evidence that the Honourable Minister was in fact the driver of the vehicle, then it will be very difficult for a court of law or a magistrate conducting the preliminary inquiry to avoid subjecting the Honourable Minister to an arrest if there is actual evidence that he was at the scene of the crime.
To further discuss the state of affairs in our nation, we'll do so with Krishma and our guest Vidya Abhigunawardena after this short break. Stay tuned.
Newsfirst Newsline with Faraz Shaukat Ali. Newsfirst Newsline with Faraz Shaukat Ali.
Welcome back to Newsline, and where we are joined by our guests this morning, Krishma Surya and Vidya Abhigunawardena, the coordinator of the Sri Lanka campaign to ban landmines. Vidya, tell me, yesterday on our Gammadda program, where we're going from village to village into the rural parts of Sri Lanka to listen to what those people have to tell us. One of them was not a victim of landmines, but she was a victim of shrapnel. So what happens to the victims of landmines? Do you have a special program? How do you... is there a program to fit limbs, and what is the program that you'll have?
When it's come to the mine action program, there are 5 areas.
Right.
So the most important 2 areas we always saying clearance, that means demining,
Right.
and then the victim assistance.
Right.
So then there are mine risk education, stockpile destructions, and advocacy. Banning landmine, basically advocacy mean. So the first thing, clearance, it's happening always. Now Sri Lankan Army Humanitarian Demining Unit is the biggest deminer in Sri Lanka, and there are international NGOs like Hello Trust, MAG.
The demining, much of the cost was met by the government of Sri Lanka, wasn't it?
When it's come to the Sri Lankan military, the government
Paid.
Paid.
Yes, but this demining...
INGOs and the local NGOs, 100% I can say that their funding comes from international
Yes, I know,
funding.
but if you took demining as a whole, didn't the government of Sri Lanka pay for most of it themselves?
Yeah.
And they had some help from the international community. Is that right?
Yes.
And what about victims?
Very
Victim
important
support.
area. So even the wartime, the Sri Lankan government look after the victims to some extent. We are not saying that we met all the criteria. So there's a very important convention called Convention of the Rights of Person with Disabilities.
Right.
So we were signatory for that convention since its inception. So actually this year January 8 we ratified the convention after many years.
Right.
That because of the landmine convention, this first human rights convention, actually person with disability, UN CRPD came in.
Right.
So that convention says that the government should meet the requirements of all the victims. So our main government organization, Ministry of Health, Ministry of Social Services, they are the key of 2 ministries supporting the victims. And also there are INGOs, NGOs, INGOs like UNICEF, Handicap International, ICRC is supporting victims. So now with the ratification of the disability conventions, so we have to have local legislation in place.
Right.
So we ratified the convention January 8 at the United Nations. We deposited the document without passing the local legislations. So now we are in a process of passing the legislation very soon.
Okay.
So we hope that with the signing of the Ottawa Convention and also the passing the local legislation with the ratification of the Disability Convention, the government and the partners, the local NGOs and the international community will have a proper victim assistance program. So
good. Excellent. Thank you. Talking about legislation, Krishmal, why is it that these local elections are not being held? What's the problem?
The interesting question. I wonder whether the question in reality is, as the Honourable Minister says, of the delimitation and the time taken on the delimitation, or as Aristotle says, we are all political animals from our birth, man's inherent nature. Keeping eye to ground politics, the resentment building up against the present regime, and also the very cogent factor of the old regime rising its head, and a possible threat of a secession amongst the PA for us. I wonder whether that is a political reality that the government is trying to grapple with and not hold for elections, at least until they are sure of their political stability, because from the possible result, maybe if they go for the local polls at this rate, a possible breakup of the major concomitant party of the unity government, the SLFP, being split into two, which may very well serve Prime Minister Ranil Wickremesinghe and the UNP's agenda. But what happens if President Maithripala Sirisena's fraction comes third in whatever scenario, and the previous regime were to overtake? I mean, that would be embarrassing, wouldn't it?
Yes, that would be. But do you think that it is in the interests of the Prime Minister's party, the UNP, to postpone these elections as much as possible?
No.
Because they don't have enough money, and they're waiting for these bags of money to come in from the IMF. They're waiting for the Saudi investors to come in. They're waiting for the mystery billionaires to come in. And basically, almost like Godot, but we hope not, we are waiting for funds. So once that, because at the moment the Prime Minister's got no funds, so he's unable to distribute funds to the grassroots through his MPs and so on. And that works for the other party too. But with the UNP having been out of power for so long, 20 years, I think, don't you think that there's a possibility that the Prime Minister is actually waiting first to get the money in, then spend it, and then you hold your elections?
So you look at one of your headlines today for us, I was just having a look at it.
Yeah.
The cabinet, His Excellency the President has summoned the cabinet for what he calls an emergency meeting on the dire strait of economy. That's what the paper reports. Dire straits for them to
quoting, the President is possibly quoting his foreign governor of the central bank.
But whatever it is, for us, don't you think that that's been a continuous bane behind this government? I mean, I am not ashamed to say, someone who stood at street corners and on stages and shouted on the 8th of January. I'm not talking of the politics that came in August, but January, that major change that the people of this country made. From that time that the government was installed and put in place, it's been a continuation of broken promises, not being able to deliver. And seriously, I don't know whether there is actually a government that we wanted with the rule of law, the economy in a stable state, and the democracy instilled in place, or whether we are having not just another government, just like the other one, with phases that have changed from the earlier phases we saw. Maybe the old boy network of the previous regime have changed to another school in the present regime, but it's the same governance, or rather misgovernance, that's continuing, because the corruption appears to be rampant, and the challenges that we see being faced with us every day appear to have been continuing. And also your question of money being, I mean, how long are we going to wait for this money to come in? Surely we by now we've gone just over a year of the 8th of January election. We've almost at the verge of coming to a year of the present government. Surely by now we could have got our act together. It's very disappointing. Very disappointing as people who contributed to this change of regime to see this happen.
But all this is playing, some people say to me yesterday, they said, all what's happening is that it's playing towards Mahinda Rajapaksa, a return of Mahinda Rajapaksa. How possible is that?
Well, I absolutely agree with that criticism. I don't know whether that's a practical reality, because the people made that massive change on the 8th of January, and I hope the people will not forget. We changed a very nepotistic regime filled with favoritism, family rule, where the family almost owned the 2/3 of a national budget for expenditure. I mean, let's hope that our people
control
the expenditure of a national expenditure. So I hope our people won't forget that so shortly. But then Sri Lankans' mind power is very short, as you know.
They're also myopic.
Yeah, so I hope the people won't forget that. Surely we can't go back from what is bad to what was worse. But certainly it's a big wake-up call, because what you say is certainly what I am also hearing, that the previous regime is slowly lifting its head up, not because of any merit that they have, but because of the inability of the present government to perform.
And have you been watching this, What We Do Best, which is Listen to the People, this network? And have you been watching the Gammadda program?
I've caught it on and off.
Yes, you see, this has uncovered abject poverty right throughout rural Sri Lanka, and that is absolutely astonishing. I think we're told that there are about 1.5 million people out there without proper homes, and who are living in temporary shelters, perhaps in tents, and they have no access to water, to electricity, matters which are basic human rights. It's a human necessity.
But can I just pose this question? Isn't it those very people who, as you say, don't have basic amenities, don't have even a roof over their heads?
Yeah.
It's a very vicious cycle, you see. Those people, which is the majority, are being exploited just before an election by either party to get their vote for a roofing sheet or a bicycle or a television set.
That's right.
Because tell me one regime that has actually gone out there and tried to uplift the economic status of the. You see, no sooner you uplift the economic standard of that citizen, then he is going to demand for education policy, hospitalization policy, transport policy when they go to vote. As long as they are economically deprived and subservient, these politicians are not going to change it. You see, because it's easier for them to come to power over a roofing sheet with a bicycle or a television set. So those very people at Gammadda or wherever need to realize, look, these people are not going to do anything to uplift our economic standard. We got to get out there and do it and demand that from the government. And so half of the blame I cast back on those people for continuously bringing nepotistic persons who are not fit to office just because they have played cricket or their faces shown on some television. Or
yes, unfortunately that's the ground reality.
Yes, so when are we going to change that?
And those changes are probably happening now, thanks to, in large, to the shareholders of this company. We've gone out there and we're listening to the people and finding out what they want. There are people who have no access. They're crossing, they're getting to the mainland, so to speak, using some contraption.
Yeah, but Farhad, listening to the people won't be enough. I hope there's going to be action
we're waiting
to educate the people.
Well, yes, we're with perhaps if people such as yourselves also joined us in our
Invite
program.
Me and I'll come.
There's no need to be invited. You can just join us. We're going all over the country, but if you'd like to have the details, if you contact us, and we'll be happy to send you where the programs are.
I'd be happy to contact.
Do come and see what's happening and see. Let's build, because excuses don't construct monuments. Action does. And so let's see what kind of action we can take to uplift and to empower the people of rural Sri Lanka who are living uncomfortably so in abject poverty without access to water, to electricity and housing, education, medical, and the list goes on. Let's see where we can put it right and how we can put it right instead of waiting for government.
Absolutely.
Let
the people do it.
Yes, and this is the People's Channel, so we are always there. So do join us. And Vidya Abegunawardena, thank you very much for coming in, telling us about landmines and so on, and I hope that you keep up the pressure. Thank you for being on the program, Trishmal. Thank you.
Always good to be.
And on that note, I shall wish you a very good morning. Thank you for watching Newsline. I will look forward to seeing you again during the week. Take care.
Newsfirst, Newsline with Faraz Shaukut Ali.